computer. Okay, everybody, good morning. I am sitting here with Steve Rosenberg, and I was just joking with him before I hit the record button. I don't even know how to start this conversation because Steve is a walking example. First of all, he's a great guy. We were joking last time I saw him. Boy, I want to say 2017, maybe, Steve. Did I pick that up pretty good in a gym?
Right.
In a gym down in Los Angeles, California. We're both involved with an organization, Macgyver USA, and Steve's a former player, maybe still player. I don't know. I'm not. I strictly get involved in the coaching and charity end. But I saw he wrote a book, and I just got so excited and attracted to it because I know his story is amazing. But he was what I would call, he's a walking example of what I call a careerpreneur. Steve's career has just spanned some amazing companies and entities and cultures, and he's now come out on top to I guess run his own entrepreneurial services. And he wrote this book called Make Bold Things Happen, which is a great title, and I'm sure he's a living walking example of making bold things happen. So I'm going to just say, hey, Steve, tell me how you're going to make bold things happen and what's the genesis of the book, and tell me where you want to start telling the rest of us your story, because it's admirable.
Well, Barry, first of all, thank you. It's always great to see you, whether it's by Zoom or in a gym. By the way, it's always better to see you in a gym. It's always better to see anybody in a gym. So I've had this idea for a book for some time. You know, many people read a lot of books, listen to a lot of books. Very few actually sit down and write them. I used to have trouble writing a long email. So the idea of writing 45,000 words continuously was a daunting task. And I found myself at the beginning of 22, after leaving a long career running the Jewish Federation of Greater Philadelphia, I said, I have some time and I'm going to write this book. And I actually didn't have the title in mind. I actually sat down and started writing without even an outline. I just knew that in my life, the one constant, the one theme that I've always had has been about networking. I know that networking, building your network, is crucial, whether you are 18, whether you are 28, whether you are 58. It is something that I tell people all the time. In fact, I had a conversation with a young guy who was a student at the University of Pennsylvania this morning who was seeking my advice. And I say to him, never stop networking. People always say, always be selling. Networking is a form of selling. You're selling yourself. You don't know who you're going to meet. For me, I grew up in Pittsburgh. And you know, my mom died. I was a very young boy. My brother was even younger, and we lived with my grandparents. And as a young person back in the 70s, it was a very different time. And growing up with your grandparents, who were two generations apart, pre-internet, pre-cable, right? The world looked and felt very differently. So for me, we were very poor. I didn't have the opportunity to travel, to go a lot of places. So for me, meeting people and hearing their stories and their journeys was how I really got to see the world. And it's something that I always enjoyed. And I could sit and talk to anybody. In fact, I'm the guy that nobody wants to go with because I talk to everybody. I'm walking down the street, I say hello to everybody. I'm standing in line at Target. I talk to the person in front of me, the person behind me, because you don't know who you're going to talk to at any time and what door that could open. Or frankly, I like to give back what door you could open for somebody else. So long-windedly, I wrote this book called Make Bold Things Happen. And it's a series of stories from my life. And then I interviewed 6 or 7 people who, in my opinion, really overcame great obstacles in their life to achieve a great deal of success, whether it be as a stonemason, whether it be as a run for Congress, whether it be in the working for the Jewish Agency, whether it be in the world of basketball, but people that I really have admired. So there you have it. That's why I wrote the book.
So this is great. So again, I didn't know where this is going to go or even start other than the introduction. So first of all, and just for anybody who cares, again, Steve and I haven't talked, for a bunch of years, and communicate online, but not very much. But you talked about networking. So just so we're clear, if the course I built, I've written papers on the exact same thing. But the funny thing is, and I know, I shouldn't say I know, I bet you're going to agree. To me, networking is everything, right? But to me, I don't call it networking because I say networking is the devil's language. I call it connecting. But I already know that you connect because that's what you do. And you and I'm amazed we didn't bump into each other at a Target somewhere and start talking. I'm the same. People don't. My kid brother says to me, Barry, how many Tylenol am I going to need for this call? Because, I like people. I like connecting. And so I just wish that I'm even more interested to hear your stories about how you did it, because I think when people sometimes think networking, it becomes transactional.
Right.
It should never be transactional. It should be, like you said, what can you give? And, that's how you connect, with people, of course. And so talk to me even more. I mean, you're a natural, right? Obviously you're a natural at it, and you did it for survival. I guess in many ways I did it as well, but about you. So, what do you think is, because it comes by you so naturally, the best players weren't always the best coaches, right?
Right.
So you're one of the best players in this world, but what do you tell people? What do you tell, your own kids? What do you tell this gentleman this morning, who you connect, you spoke with? What do you tell them to start?
Oh, I say, first of all, you have to be interested and try to be interesting, right?
Yep.
And look, at my core, nobody believes this, I'm an introvert. So if I walk into a room or if I'm standing in Target, I really don't want to talk to anybody else. But if I don't make an effort to say hello, to smile, to reach out, then I'm going to live a Howard Hughes type life, which is not a life that I want to live. That would be a very lonely life. So you have to put yourself out there. Sometimes it takes me a minute to get myself psyched up, and I talk about that in the book, but you have to genuinely want to meet people. People are interesting. Not everybody is nice, not everybody is pleasant, not everybody is friendly, but people are all interesting. And there's a story in the book about a guy I met who was living on the streets in Philadelphia. He was not always a homeless guy. His story is fascinating. And if you don't have that inquisitive nature about you, and if you don't want to better yourself, and if you think you know everything, then you're right, connecting, because that is a better word than networking. Networking is very transactional. I don't go to events with business cards.
Right.
Because someone says, do you have a card? I said, no, give me your card and I'll email you. Or, I'll take my phone out and I'll put their contact information in my phone. But walk up to somebody, just have a conversation and ask them questions about them. People love to talk about themselves. And before you know it, you have a contact that may or may not be able to help you. But I also get great joy out of helping other people. And I know that sounds fairy tale-esque, if you will, but nobody writes a better introductory email for two people than me. And people always say to me, well, what do you get out of it? I say, listen, my time on earth is somewhere between now and death. So far, it's been a good run. My mom died at 29, okay? So if I make it another 20 or 30 years, if one of my greatest pleasures is putting people together and watching great things happen, and I know that I had made the connection, that makes me feel good. I'm not somebody of great means where I can write $100,000 checks to charity. I wish I could. So I like to put people together, but I am legitimately interested and inquisitive about people's journeys. That's how you learn. And that's the simple, very most basic advice that I would give, and I have given to many people.
Sure. I mean, but that's your ethos. And it's interesting. You said, well, what's in it? Somebody said, well, what do you get out of it? I mean, the reality is, at some level, who cares? Right. I mean, I have this thing on my personal blog, and the title page says share the ball.
Yep.
You're
you don't want to play with the ball stopper, right?
Right.
You want to play a game where where the ball is moving, where if you give it up, you're going to get it back. Some games you go play, you pass the ball, you may not see the ball again for another hour. That's what kind of fun is that? If I want to run, I'll put on a pair of running shoes and go run around a track. I want to be involved in it. Basketball is the most beautiful game, particularly when you were talking earlier, you mentioned Steph Curry. Steph Curry, when the Warriors were playing at their highest level, that was the most beautiful form of basketball there is. The way the ball moved, the way it reversed, went into the pivot, came back out, that's basketball. If you want to just go play one-on-one basketball, play one-on-one basketball.
Right. That's a perfect analogy, right? And for us, old basketball guys, I'm older than you, but I mean, that's it, right? And so I say that, that's the way I teach the game, and that's my belief of life, right? Better things happen when the ball moves. In this case, it's just connecting people. I told you a story before we got on camera. I heard from a guy just last night, no BS. He told me the last time we spoke was 1975, and we met in the playground where I grew up, that we called the desert at the intersection of Tabor Road and Garland Avenue in Philadelphia. But sharing it and putting yourself out there as such, how do you dissuade or explain in a way where they'll get it to people who want to know, well, what do you get out of it? Because it's in many ways, it's an obvious question, but it's a horrible question, right? Because then it turns transactional, right? So
I just
go ahead.
I'm real honest. I just love meeting people, and if I can put two people together, maybe somewhere down the road, I do a favor for somebody, and I don't. There's no quid pro quo, but maybe down the line, if I build my network enough, like I have 9,000 contacts, legitimate contacts in my phone, right? Contacts. And if I need something, I feel like I could reach out to some portion of those people to say, hey, I'm down on my luck. Can you introduce me to this one? Can you introduce me to that one? Or I need a favor or something, right? That they would do it. Everybody has, I know you can't, I don't mean to be sexist when I say this, but everybody goes, do you know a guy? Everybody says, do you know a guy? I'm the first they call when they want to know if you know a guy, because I'm the guy that everybody knows who knows a guy, no matter what it is. I can fix or solve everything because I'm always one degree of separation away from the answer to the question. And isn't that a much better way to be than having to say, oh, what do I do here? I guess I have to go Google how to get my carburetor fixed. I don't know if they make carburetors anymore. I'm just saying that's a better thing. That's a better way to be than to have all these chicks in your pocket than to not do anything for anybody.
So it is, first of all, 100%, right? I mean, okay, you'll get a kick out of this. You have any idea what this is?
It looks like a Rolodex.
There you go. So I grew up in my business, right? Before databases, existed. LinkedIn was what? That was my database, right? And it was filled, like you're saying, with thousands of names and in many ways, the LinkedIns and the Facebooks, I mean, it's valuable tools, but you said it. You're a pre-technology guy, and this ability to connect and interest in connecting was analog, not digital, right? I mean, you're actually speaking to people in Target, in the line at the supermarket. I mean, I drive my wife crazy also, by the way. But the point is, it's such a better way to play, and I think it's so important that people hear what you're saying and try to grok it into their own personality, because what did you say? You have 8,000, 9,000 contacts, and I know what you're saying. My brothers and I joke about a guy. You got a guy, you got a guy, you got a guy, because guys are, again, not to be sexist, important. But I wonder if you should build a course on connecting, right? I mean, I know that's what your book is about, and so forth, but it's such a lost message. So how about if we do this? This is going to be fun for me, actually. So I have, you got this amazing resume. Like I said, you're a careerpreneur. I mean, your LinkedIn profile takes up 4 pages. Which is cool. You mentioned Franco Harris. I just told a Franco Harris story the other day because I went to Penn State at the same time as Franco. We used to play basketball. He and Lydell Mitchell and a couple of friends of mine up in Rec Hall at midnight because, anyway, but great dude. But so you've done everything from be a marketing and public relations assistant for the Bullets, for the Washington Bullets, all the way up through working for the Jewish Federation of Philadelphia, along the way of Greater Philadelphia, along the way of editor and so forth. So how did your abilities and interests to connect? You're coming out of Pittsburgh, like University of Maryland, with a BA in sports administration. Take me through the connection part of this, the ascension of your career, if you will. Are there any stories or anecdotes? You get that? Because I want to explain to people anecdotally, because I think it matters. So go ahead. Sorry.
Look, like I said, I had to pay my way through school. A smarter person than me probably would have stayed home and gone to Pitt. In fact, when I went to school, sports administration, there were only 2 schools in the entire country that have undergraduate programs. One of them happened to have been Robert Morris in Pittsburgh. It would have been a lot cheaper for me to go to school in Pittsburgh than to go to Maryland. But all my friends were going away. It seemed like the thing to do. Very few people in my family had gone to college. So I said, all right, I'm going to go away to college too, just like everybody else. But I'm going to go to a place where internships are going to be important. I knew that, even though I really didn't have a mentor. So I said, I'm going to go to Maryland, DC metro area. But after 2.5 years, I realized I couldn't continue. I was working, selling ladies' shoes. I was doing this or whatever I needed to do to pay my way through school. And I finally said, I got a job working for the Bullets while I was in school, where my first job was to help Americanize Manute Bol. Okay. So I was going to school at night and on the weekends. I did graduate on time, but I had to work, and I had this opportunity. Here I am, a kid from Pittsburgh, working in the NBA, and I couldn't not take the job. And they were willing to start me knowing that I was in school, and I took it. And there were days that my day involved me driving Manute. I was driving a small little Toyota Tercel, which is like a hatchback they don't make anymore. And Manute's so big, 7'7" from the Sudan, he'd be in the back seat with his feet thrown over the front seat. I'd be driving, I'd be here. All I would see were big, skinny knees. And at the time, Manute didn't speak English, and I certainly speak Sudanese. So our conversations weren't anything. This was had there been social media, I would have trended on TikTok like it was nobody.
Oh God.
Because you can't imagine these pictures. And here, so you just learned how to get things done. But I knew that I was on my way. My dream was to be, Adam Silver. I was going to be the NBA commissioner, and here I am working in the NBA. So wherever I went, whatever I did, Barry, whoever I talked to, I asked questions. Oh, you want me to make these copies of this? Okay, what is it? What's its purpose? What's it going to do? I was like for the Jewish people out there, I was like the simple son of Passover. I just always asked questions. Why? Never questioning, but like, what's the purpose? What's the intent? No matter where I went, I met people, and I continued to just build this network. And I worked for the Bullets, and I could have continued working there, but I didn't really want to continue in the DC area. It was very expensive for a young, poor kid like me, making, I don't know, $12,000, $13,000 a year.
Right.
And I got a job in Philly working for the Flyers organization at Spectacor, as it was called then. And here I am, a Pittsburgh Penguin fan, no self-respecting Pittsburgher at that time is going to live in Philadelphia. This is right at the time when Mayor Good had just bombed Osage Avenue. And I was like, wow, I guess I'm going to go live in Philly. And then I ended up there for 30 some odd years, but it was all through constant networking. Here's a very funny story that is not in the book. My very first party at Spectacor was at the Adams Mark Hotel, which I'm sure you remember, on City Avenue.
Sure.
And it's a big to do. And everybody had, suit and ties, and people still got dressed up. And Ed Snyder, the Flyers owner, is standing at the bar by himself. And here I am, this 22, 23-year-old kid. I straighten my tie and I get up and I'm going to go walk over and say hello to Ed Snyder. And everybody at my table was like, where are you going? You can't talk to him. Nobody talks to him. And he had gone to Maryland like I did. And I was like, I'm going to go talk to Ed Snyder. Walked up. I said, hi, Mr. Snyder. My name's Steve Rosenberg. I'm new at Spectacor. I went to Maryland. And he looked at me. He said, Steve, thank you for coming up and talk to me. Nobody ever seems to talk to me at these things. And we stood there and talked for 10 minutes. We had the most lovely conversation. For the next few years, every time he saw me in the building, he would walk up and shake my hand and say hello to me. I always called him Mr. Snyder. He called me Steve.
Sure.
I knew not to talk to him during a Flyers game because he was, very
gross.
But nobody else talked to the guy. And here, all the guy wanted to do was have somebody talk to him. You can't be afraid or intimidated to talk to anybody. And that was one of my most favorite things that ever happened to me back in my early stages of my career. Did it get me anywhere? I don't have any idea, but I proved to everybody you can't be afraid to go talk to the quote unquote important people.
Yeah, I mean, did it get you somewhere? You're here. I actually wanted to, it's a great story. And these are the stories I want to try to extract from you, but I actually want to go backwards. So because of some of the people who will wind up seeing this interview, they're coming out of school and they probably give their one of their phalanges, right, to work for an NBA team. So how did you get the I don't even want to say the nerve, because obviously, you got to kind of suck it up and be willing to, to get a no. But what was your MO to contact this NBA team? Was it Abe Pollin at the time?
Yeah, Abe Pollin owned it. And I had started networking, believe it or not, in high school with members in the business office of the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Gotcha.
And one of the guys, a guy by the name of Steve Greenberg, that I had made contact with, I reached out to him. I said, hey, do you know anybody? I knew that you always asked, because these jobs even back then were hard to get.
Sure.
And I said, anybody working at the Capitol Center or for the Bullets? And he did. He introduced me and I interviewed. I didn't just get the job. I had to interview and I ended up getting the job, but it was through a connection. And those kinds of contacts and connections are just invaluable. You're right. In today's world, the competition for those jobs are immense. So many people understand that working in sports, particularly now, is, and particularly in the NBA, is like a dream. So I networked, I followed up. I didn't get an immediate response. There was no email either back in the day.
No kidding.
Like I wrote a letter, I had typed a resume, I sent it, I called again, and I think I even drove down and dropped my resume off because I wanted to make sure that it actually got there. So persistence wins the game because the teams know that there's hundreds of people that want these jobs. And a lot of people just drop out because they realize, well, maybe I should just go make more money. Well, I don't really want to fight. It's the fight within you that gets these opportunities. I'm talking about the good fight, not the.
No, I get it. Your ability to compete, and I say with yourself, right? To this 100%. Is what you want. Do it, then do it. So, this is not in any way meant to be disrespectful. More like again, kind of anecdotal. So you're a good athlete, but you weren't a.
No.
You weren't a top 100 player. You were Steve Rosenberg, who loved the game and whatever, and yet you got to this position, and it didn't have anything to do with the fact that you, were a high school or college superstar in sports, right? You were just Steve Rosenberg being Steve, correct? I
was a pretty good volleyball player, and I was a pretty good swimmer. Back before I hurt my shoulder, I wasn't a bad baseball player, but you're talking about,
right.
I was fine. Like college sports was not even I couldn't even joke about it. It was such fiction. And on a basketball court, I was the guy you definitely wanted on your team because I was going to set picks, do all the things you wanted. But I think the most points I ever had in a game maybe was 12 or 13. Like I was not that guy. loved the game, understood the game, could coach, but oh my God, they did not pick me because of my basketball prowess.
And yet you were able to leverage this drive, this competitive spirit, right? And willing to connect and follow up. And it's so funny. Oh, you drove down there, you wrote letters. I mean, this is the counsel that I give everybody, but no, well, I'll email them. No. Everybody else is emailing him. Write to him, drop
Do something different.
You know,
Right.
But it's so valuable, right, to this day. So do me a favor, keep going. So what was Network International, and what was the connection that drove you to get to them?
I got a promotion. Network was another Spectacor related entity. Network,
okay,
handling all the signage and all the, eventually Spectacor managed with one of the Pritzker companies, and it became SMG. And so we handled all the signage in 32 arenas and stadiums around the country, and we were doing all the stadium implementations. But that's where I also learned the event business. We built a property called Alumni All-Star Hockey. So we would put on tournaments in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, where we would take the Rangers, Islanders, Flyers, alumni, and that's when they were still really young. These were like the Flyers had won in the 70s,
sure.
And they would play each other in either the Nassau Coliseum or Madison Square Garden or at the Meadowlands or at the Spectrum. And we would have sellout crowds, 18, 20,000 people just watching these old timers play hockey. We did some other events and managed. That's where I got my teeth cut on the Army Navy game, because we managed the Army Navy game in the city of Philadelphia back at the old Vet Stadium. And we managed the 100th anniversary game, not the 100th game, but the 100th anniversary game. And, for those of you that understand what Army Navy is, that's probably the greatest, in my opinion, annual game that there is. Not the best players. It's not the best game of the year, but the spectacle and the pomp and circumstance around that game is so powerful. And I've been to, I don't know, a dozen or a dozen and a half games, I guess, at this point. And every time I go, chills. And it's not because it's 10 degrees outside. So Network was a really great thing. And then I went out on my own, and I decided that, you know what, I'm going to take my talents to be a little entrepreneurial here. And we were out, I created this company called Myriad Associates. And we were doing great work, Barry. We were the agency of record for the World Wrestling Federation and Ringling Brothers and Disney's World of Ice, and promoting our own shows and doing some Nickelodeon work, and created a program called the Book and the Cook Fair, which was before the Food Network existed. We were bringing local top chefs like Julia Child and Graham Kerr to Philadelphia, and surrounding them with small food purveyors and filling the convention center. And we actually sold that event to a bigger company. And that was right around the time when ad agencies were coming in and buying these types of companies up. And we didn't make a lot of money, but we were able to sell that company. And then I went to work for, you can sort of see some transitions happen, sports, entertainment. Then I went to work for a group called Educational Marketing Concepts, which was doing the same type of work I was doing in Network International, but they were doing it in museums and zoos and performing arts centers and aquariums. So that's where I started to get this niche in not-for-profits. And it was great because we were doing earned revenue programs and sponsorship and consulting in the not-for-profit space, but venue-oriented not-for-profits, and teaching them how to become anything that was not contributed revenue. And it was really great. It was part of the Safeguard Scientific family of companies, but eventually that sort of blew up, and one thing led to another, and I became this expert in Philadelphia. I opened the Constitution Center. I helped open the Independence Visitor Center, the Please Touch Museum, and again was doing some more consulting in the Philadelphia tourism community. Really got to know a lot more people. So every time, I went to someplace different, more and more contacts, building on the work that I had done before. And then who knew that somebody ended up handing me the Jewish Federation job description. And I was never a big, I was always involved in the Jewish community, like
Yeah.
you, through the hobby world, through the
Yes.
JCC, through sports. And
Right. Ditto.
listen, Jed Margolis. I always thought I would take his job, but Jed was doing such a great job and never retiring. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go take this federation job.
Sure.
And the work in the Jewish community really changed my trajectory. It was, I stayed involved in sports in my personal life, but the work around, as a Jew, the work around helping to fight anti-Semitism and Jew hatred and a lot of stuff around the pro-Israel work really has become very important to me. And I speak nationally, I write nationally, and I do a lot of work in that area. And that's where a lot of my consulting now has taken place.
So it's an amazing story. And yes, we are both, our heritage is strong. It's impacted our lives strongly. We talked about, you have Tamir Goodman's shirt on. Tamir wrote a great story today about his grandmom, who's a Holocaust survivor, and today is her heavenly anniversary. I told you a story about Dr. Eva Fager, another Holocaust survivor. So I think this resonates with us. But for the people who are listening, who are, it is a strong anchor for us. But the question I want to say, to make this kind of overarching. So you are a super connected guy and you get it. From Myriad through Rose Communications, through Historic Philadelphia, all the way up to your work in the Federation. What impact does the fact that people trust you to do these jobs, and how important do you think this whole ascension you were able to develop and kill, in the best of ways? I mean, you just did amazing work. Where does trust enter into it as you evolve through all these different jobs and roles?
That's a great question. I would like to think that it's very high. I've always been someone of high integrity and worked hard and smart. And if you pay me $1, you're getting $1.50's worth of effort. I treat everybody, like it's my own business. I'm not real. It's funny you call me a careerpreneur, because I don't really consider myself an entrepreneur. I think I'm entrepreneurial, and I think there's a difference.
Absolutely.
So I like working in other people's organizations, but I'm somebody who's very trustworthy. If you leave me in a room with $1 million and go away for 3 weeks, the $1 million is still going to be there, because that's just the way I am. But more importantly, I value organizational governance and bylaws, and I follow procedure and policy. And by the way, far from perfect. I mean,
no, none of us are. I get that.
Right. I've made gazillions of mistakes. I've tried not to make the same. In fact, one of the things I've always tried to do with employees, new employees I've inherited, is I use a pencil as an analogy. And I always give somebody a brand new #2 pencil. And I tell them the story, and I feel like this is really important. I say, this pencil only works if it stays sharp, just like you and I. But to keep it sharp, you got to put it in that little box and turn it through that little grinder. And it's probably hurts to stay sharp, but you got to keep it sharp for it to work. Right. Number one. Number two, what's it have on the other end? It's got an eraser, because there's a very good chance you're going to make a mistake. So use the eraser, erase the mistake, and keep going forward. And lastly, what's the real reason you have the pencil? Is so that you can leave a mark. So, and that's really, to me, what life's about. So I would like to think that trust has played a crucial part in people that have hired me, used me, recommended me, referred me, because they know that I am somebody who is very trustworthy in not just, financial work and fiduciary work, but in getting the job done on time or on budget, or with a smile and in a fun way. All those things are very important.
So I'm again, I love it, and to me, trust is everything, and it's hard to get, and of course, if you lose it, you can't get it back, sort of thing.
Like your hair.
Thank you, but admitting flaw, mistake. I mean, it's funny you said that. So when I write reference letters for people, I tell them what I'm doing, but I would say it to myself, perfection escapes Steve as it does us all, however, because perfection does escape us all, right? It's like anybody who's sitting here pretending they never made a mistake is a sociopath, right?
Yeah.
Is a narcissist, right? I mean, really, it's true. And so I love this um, I love the pencil. First of all, I always use pencils. That is my standard tool.
Yep.
But the sharpening and the erasing, biggest mistake that you made, admitted to, and rectified that you could think of? Not to put you on the spot, but again, we're teaching here, right, Steve? We're trying to help people understand how the game really works.
Wow. I can't think of, you're putting me on the spot. I would
I
say
like it.
this mistake that I've made is probably trusting somebody else in the wrong situation. And, I'm not a micromanager. So if I hire somebody, I expect them to do the work.
Man, we're
And
so much alike.
and I've made mistakes in relying on the wrong person or people. And I've gotten really burnt really bad in the past, and sometimes things are hard. It takes time to overcome those, and particularly in today's world of the way the media is instantaneous,
Yes.
it's challenging. I don't think I haven't built a business that failed. I didn't, never, thank God, never to come back from bankruptcy or anything like that. But to me, trusting the wrong people or putting the wrong people in the wrong jobs are mistakes that I've made. And it's very frustrating. But you also, if you're going to run a big organization, you can't do everything. You have to.
No, right. No, you have to share the ball, right?
Right.
And somebody might drop it, right? And so forth. But I think, for me, and tell me if you agree, I mean, admitting you did it is kind of half the battle of fixing it. Right. I mean,
I'm the first one to say, I'm sorry, I screwed this up.
Yep.
I don't, you can't hide from a mistake. That's the worst thing you can do. Own the mistake and start over, start new, start in the middle, whatever. But don't try to, lie and cheat. If you tell the truth, you have one story to remember for the rest of your life. And if you're lying and you're trying to fix problems that can't be fixed, you're just wasting time, right? Just move on and start over. It's very simple.
I mean, I'm going to send you a copy of my book. That the truth is in the title, because that's been my experience, right? I mean, it's like, yeah, my bad, so to speak, and then let's move on, right? I mean, otherwise, whatever. So, I'm so, first of all, I'm so grateful again for the time when you decided to, I mean, I'm reading your focus on relationship development and, of course, team leadership and cost reduction and change management. For all these things, before we get into, I want to talk a little bit more about your book. A unique understanding of prioritizing needs and accomplishing goals with unwavering focus, results-oriented, bottom-line goals. All of this involves people, right? I mean, none of us can do anything by ourselves. It's a huge mistake to think otherwise, right? It's huge, in my opinion, right? I mean, you have guys, I'm a decent carpenter, but, I just had to redo something in my house. I got to get a guy because I have other stuff to do. So when you have guys, and obviously it could be girls, women, management style, like how do you get people to, share the vision and respond? And again, you've made mistakes. I'm a terrible manager, honestly. I'm a decent coach, but I'm a terrible manager because I'm like you. I expect people, you give them a job, you're here, let's get it done. How do you manage to fix the mistake, find the right people? How do you manage people if they do screw up? What's that communication style? Because in my opinion, tell me if you think or you disagree, that's also connecting. Steve, I messed up, but Steve really handled me in a way where I don't hate them, where I don't want to leave a,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
so.
I believe in good, honest, timely feedback and letting people know where they stand. You know, when I have a team, weekly meetings, let's develop a work plan. What are you going to do? I want to know, I don't want to micromanage you, but you know, here's the jobs that you have to get done. Here's the work that we expect that you're going to get done. Get it done. I'm not a time watcher, so I don't need to know that you're in at 9 and you leave at 5 every day. Get the work done and don't make me look bad. Okay, don't cheat me and don't lie to me, because I'll give you all the credit. I'll take all the blame, but I believe in good, open, honest communication and all the time. All the time. I try not to have closed door meetings. Yeah, if your door's always closed and something's going on, that's not okay. And while I do like offices, I don't like these open floor plans. I think if you just continue to give feedback to your employees on where they stand and what the vision is, and make sure that there's a phrase in Hebrew called Rosh Gadol, and it means sort of the giant head. And what I mean by that is let everybody know that the sum is greater than the parts, right? So if you're a writer, what are you writing and how is that going to impact the rest of the team? And if you are a marketing person, the ads that you might be buying, how does that impact the team? If you're an IT person, what does that, everybody needs to know their role, but more importantly, how that role is impacting the greater good. And if everybody just has tunnel vision, I'm just going to do my job, and then it doesn't work. Everybody has to understand that they're part of a team. And if they do that, and I also look for other characteristics in teams. I want to make sure integrity and passion are there. And if I find somebody, I don't care about their brains, because I've never worked in a business where we were either curing cancer or building rocket ships. I'll teach you all day long how to do the work that we're doing, but come at me with integrity, passion, desire, and an understanding of wanting to be part of the team. We're going to get great stuff done.
Yeah. And when someone, quote unquote, no pun intended, drops the ball, how do you communicate with that? Like, I don't imagine you're Khrushchev. I don't imagine you're pounding your shoe on the
right away. I'm not Bobby Knight either. Right away.
That's
Listen,
my point.
Here's what happened. Let's, remember the eraser on the pencil. Let's erase it. Let's move forward. Learn from this, and tell me what you need. Why did it happen? Is there an issue going on? Like, did something happen? And how can I help you? How can I help make sure that this doesn't happen again? And you let them know that you're there for them, right? If a kid in left field at 9 years old drops a ball, you can either scream at him, which is not going to help him catch the ball the next time,
right?
Or you can help him, teach him how to catch a fly ball, right? And that's how you have to approach everybody. Because trust me, while someone else may have dropped the ball, I'm dropping a ball over here, and all those people are my responsibility. So if they drop the ball, it's my fault.
Yep. No, good.
And they know. I always tell them, I got it. I take the blame. You're not gonna. We'll fix it, and let's move forward. Always moving forward. If you're not moving forward, you're either in neutral or you're going backwards. So we always have to be driving forward.
I mean, it's you're warming my heart here. It's amazing. If somebody buys and reads your book, Make Bold Things Happen. Great title, by the way. It's a big promise, right? I mean, you put yourself on this. No, it's good. Yeah. I mean, that's the point, right? I haven't read it. I need a signed copy. I'm buying, but I still need it signed. I need it signed. What would you hope? One takeaway. I know you hope there are several takeaways from the book. I know that, again, I've written myself, and you hope what you're writing, someone gets the overarching message. So yours, Make Bold Things Happen. But what do you hope somebody grabs from that? What does that title mean? What's the message that you're hoping that somebody really gets from it? Is that a decent question? I mean, do you understand my question?
I think that anybody, I know this sounds corny because people say it all the time, but literally anybody can do anything. And bold is in the eye of the beholder, right? And bold to you is different than bold to me, than different to bold to that person over there. Bold doesn't mean that everybody's going to be the president of the United States or the commissioner of the NBA or a supermodel, okay? bold just means that life's a marathon, not a sprint. Don't be afraid to talk to people, meet people, be inquisitive, and chase your dreams. Your dreams are out there, and without your dreams, you die. Like those are the things that keep us moving. So put together your ideal plan and go get it. And by the way, my life has been great. I'm rich in the sense that I have a great family. I have great friends. I have had an enjoyable career. I'm not ready to retire. I have to keep working, but I've a lot of everything I've done, I've enjoyed, and I've met great people. And to me, that if I look back, if I wrote a note to my 7-year-old self after my mother died, and I knew that this was going to happen in my life, I would say that I had made bold things happen because I could have very easily gone a bad route, but I didn't. I made bold things happen. I'm not a household name. I'm not on TV. Nobody knows me, which is, by the way, okay. But the bold is a different thing to other people. But just you have one life, as far as we know. Make it the best possible life that you can make it. And I think that's going to look different for everybody. But just don't be afraid to go talk to people and ask and make connections and strive for more, because there's always more to strive for.
So like pick your bold, but then make your bold happen, right? Pick your
Yeah,
bold.
of course.
You know, like I say similar things. I ain't going to play in the NBA, but, you know, I can have some other bold impact.
Absolutely.
You know, and so forth. And so,
Absolutely.
look, so you have a consulting firm now, and I'm just reading from your profile: fractional CEO, COO, and CMO services for small to mid-sized private companies and nonprofits. If anybody is watching this and they get some sense, this was not intended to be a Steve Rosenberg infomercial, because really Steve is contributing to me and for the work that we're doing with my nonprofit. But having said that, somebody needs help in some of those areas. Would you at some point give me, and I'll put it in the show notes, how somebody would contact you if they?
Yep, I'll shoot you an email. And just as another humorous story, I called my practice is called the GSD group, and GSD,
yes, I was wondering about that. Thank you.
GSD stands for Get Shit Done, because that's what we got to do in life. We got to get shit done. And that's, if you're not getting shit done, then I don't know what you're doing. And, Get Shit Done is not a bad title. And I always say GSD 24/7, all day, every day. Let's go.
I love it. And geez, I didn't go there. I feel like I failed my Philadelphia playground roots to not grab that. I feel like my bad. Here we go.
No,
no, it's terrible. I love it.
Good.
I didn't figure it out. So thank you.
Thank
First
you.
of all, any kind of closing comments? I'm going to write about this, and my heart is so warm from having this.
Thank you for all that you do and all that you're doing. The Fifth Quarter is a phenomenal project, which I intend to learn more about, get as involved as I can from the East Coast. And
sure.
If you don't know Barry, get to know Barry, because he's the guy that gets shit done and has made plenty of bold things happen. And it's always a pleasure to see you. I wish I could see you more, and I'm going to make a mission of mine through 23. We're going to connect more and talk more. And I can't thank you enough for having me on.
Oh no, you're very welcome, and we're going to figure out how to do that and so forth. So yeah, thank you very much, Steve. I'm gonna stop here, and so we don't bore anybody else with our drivel, but thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll catch up moving forward.